right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning to the SMB Franchise Advisors channel. Today, we got the Director of Operations with Lisa Saad, who has helped thousands of franchise owners, independent business owners really get off the ground with leadership, marketing, sales, customer service, coaching, whatever you can think of in terms of getting those new business owners off the ground. So today, we're going to be diving into a pretty interesting topic with the corporate operations manual and the franchise operations manual. So maybe you're a business, you have a few units, you have, an operations manual, but maybe you're making that transition to franchising where things may change a little bit. Could you walk us through, Lisa, at a high level, what are those differences between a franchise operations manual and a corporate operations manual?
Yeah, Josh, thanks a lot for having me today. And, this is one of those things that when we get new clients that come on board and they're looking to franchise their business, typically they have a proof of concept, right? You have one restaurant open or two restaurants open, or maybe you have a couple of spas that are open and you're looking to franchise. Well, with those proof of concept locations, you've started to probably create some type of operations manual or some type of training materials documenting, how to open the location, how to close, what are the procedures, what are the day-to-day operations. Now that's all great. And we're still going to use that in your franchise-facing operations manual. But your franchise-facing operations manual is also going to incorporate how to be a franchisee. So it's really going to set that foundation for the franchisor-franchisee relationship.
No, that's super helpful, Lisa. And I know if you are like an incoming franchise owner, you're trying to learn a new business, you're trying to learn a lot of information in a short amount of time. So I can imagine how important it is to really have that detailed checklist when you're creating that franchise operations manual. Could you talk about how important it is to really have a comprehensive operations manual for those incoming franchise owners to not only learn, but be able to replicate as they are new and more incoming franchise owners brought into the system?
Of course, Josh. Let's talk about that. So one thing it's important to mention is that you're going to have a lot of other subject matter in your operations manual besides just day-to-day operation. You're going to help that franchisee understand how to set up their business, how they're going to market the business, and the rules and regulations around protecting your brand standards. So it's really important to have a comprehensive operations manual because you're going to use that as a compliance tool. Your operational support people that go out to support your franchisees, that's going to be their first frame of reference. When those franchisees come through training, getting ready to open their location, they're going to be absorbing so much information. Again, your operations manual is going to be that document, that place where they can go and they can reference exactly how they're supposed to do things so that your brand standard is protected and you can open location, and the customer that comes in or the guest that comes in never knows that they're in a franchise location.
No, that's really powerful, Lisa. And I'm curious with the operations manual, like the timeline that it would take to actually create an operations manual. Like I'm just thinking, new business owner trying to learn everything about the franchise, whereas the founders invested maybe decades into that business. They know the ins and outs of the business, and now they're giving other people the ability to use the name, image, likeness, but they have to learn that business in a much shorter period of time. How long does it take to create an operations manual? How many pages is that? I'm almost afraid to ask.
Yeah. So at SMB, it takes a few months for us to create an operations manual for someone. And our operations manual is split up into sections. So, I specialize in the operations section, and that's your day-to-day operations, but we also have a marketing section. We have a setting up your business section. So we really work on splitting that content out and building it one section at a time instead of taking on the entire thing in one sitting. It's kind of like eating an elephant, right? You can only do it one bite at a time. So you really have to kind of chunk it up and be patient with yourself and document. So one of the things that's important to keep in mind as a new emerging franchisor is that you're going to have your operations manual. And as you bring on your first 2, 3, 4 franchisees, you're really going to be doing a lot of handholding with them in terms of training and setting up those compliance standards. So that first operations manual is super important. It creates your base, but it's going to evolve with you as a franchisor and as you grow.
No, that's really interesting. So the operations manual is kind of something that's changing over time. It's not like you kind of build it one time and, that's it. Similar to an FDD document where you have to kind of renew that on a yearly basis, it sounds.
Yes, absolutely. So your FDD, obviously people file that maybe once a year, maybe you update it another additional time throughout the course of the year, but your operations manual should be split out into a couple of different sections. So the way that we create that at SMB is we create your foundational operations manual manual. And then those things that are going to change per location or maybe more frequently are going to be put in as exhibits. So those exhibits can change very frequently and more easily. You can change an exhibit and you can send out a communication to your franchise community, track that communication, and that's your update. If it's a substantive change in your operations manual, then we recommend you only do that a couple of times a year. And really, it's great to do it at the same time that you do your FDD. So you're renewing your FDD, go through, take a read through of your operations manual. Is it all consistent? Is it all correct? Update that and push those communications out at the same time.
Okay, that's super helpful, Lisa. And as we are kind of diving into franchising, these business owners, their goal is to grow, ideally maybe reach that 100 unit mark that only so many franchises get to. But in order to get to that mark, it requires very high validation. And as you alluded to earlier, if you go to a location in Boston, Los Angeles, Canada, maybe, you expect that same experience, and not really understanding that maybe it is a small business owner and you do feel like it is a corporate entity because of those strong systems in place. But with the operations manual, how do you kind of ensure this brand standard compliance if, you want to continue to grow, you want to systemize everything, but, you're having people read an operations manual? How do you make it so that people can replicate your business based upon an operations manual?
I think your operations manual becomes the base for everything else that you do in your training program. So your operations manual creates that foundation, and then you can use that material to build out your franchise training program, to build out your franchise compliance program. But this becomes the foundation of all that information, all that content that you need to go and do a webinar, to go and do an online training program or a class, to do, when you have operational support infrastructure in place and you have people from the corporate office, if you will, or from the franchisor going out and visiting those franchisees, this creates a basis for those conversations.